Today's session, as previously, is dedicated to a presentation of the National Commission for the Fight Against Genocide, CNLG. As this is a commemoration event, I would request everyone who lost their lives during the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. Thank you. You may be seated. PhD in education from the University of Geneva. He's currently the Director General in charge of Research and Documentation Center on Genocide at the National Commission for the Fight Against Genocide, CNLG. Prior to that, he served as a consultant for the UNESCO headquarters in Paris and in Somalia. He also headed the support department in charge of research and communication at Geneva Corps, a Geneva-based non-governmental organization. Dr. Jean Damascene, you are welcome to deliver your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Jean Damon Kugimana. Dear Professor Binagwa Agnes, Vice Chancellor of the University of Global Health Equity, dear faculty members, dear staff members, dear students, all protocol observed. It's my privilege to be with you this afternoon. And I'm sorry again for the last time, but I think, and I'm convinced that we're gonna have a good discussion. We have a technical staff here. And let me take you through the discussion. Thank you so much. So we are here to remember those who were killed because they were Tutsi. And this is the reason why we are talking about the genocide against the Tutsi, and we are not talking about civil war. In Rwanda, what's happened in 1994, from the 7th of April until the 3rd of July, we had 100 days of genocide against the Tutsi. It was a genocide because even kids were killed, pregnant women were killed, old people were killed. Every Tutsi were a target. That's why it's a genocide against the Tutsi and not a civil war. Elie said that to forget would be not only dangerous, but offensive. So here we understand the reason why really we have to remember our family members, our friends, to remember all Rwandans, all Tutsis who were killed in 1994, genocide against the Tutsi. And the whole world should remember, because happening in any place again. Now, let me take you back to the pre-colonial period, because I think we have to understand what's happened before. Now, Hutu, Tutsi, and Twa, those terms existed before the colonial period. Those names existed before the Europeans arrived in this country. But the meaning was not what we have seen, we have observed during the colonial period and in the post-colonial period and during the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. Before the colonial period, Hutu, Tutsi, and Twa were different groups, but the difference was based on the social living conditions. Hutu living by agriculture, Tutsi by having cows, raising cows, and Twa by hunting, mainly by hunting. And because of the intermarriage, in fact, the three groups came together and make one group, and that group is called Abanyarwanda, Rwandans. In fact, we share the language, Ikinyarwanda, we share the language. We share the territory, Rwanda, the territory. We share the religion, Imana y'Abanyarwanda, the God of Rwanda. If you attend a funeral, if there is a death in a funeral, the ceremony are the same in Hutu family, Tutsi family, and Twa family. Really, we don't have ethnic group in Rwanda, because when you go to the definition, we don't have ethnic groups in Rwanda. We have different social groups living based on the living conditions, but when we analyze the ethnicity, the meaning of ethnicity, we don't have ethnic group in Rwanda. Now, in Europe, in 1884 and 1885, the Berlin Conference divided. In Europe, the European countries divided Africa, and Rwanda was given to Germany. And in 1894, Germans started colonizing Rwanda. And what happened in 1994, it was exactly 100 years after the Europeans, especially the Germans, started colonizing Rwanda. Then in 1900, the Catholic Church arrived in Rwanda. And in fact, we can't talk about the history of Rwanda if we don't talk about the history of the Catholic Church and the influence of the Catholic Church in Rwanda. Then 1916, the Belgians arrived in Rwanda. They came from Congo. That time, they were fighting against Germans. And that's how, coming from Congo, they took Rwanda, and Rwanda became under the Belgian authorities. So Germans, they lost in Europe, but also they lost the colony around the globe. Now, in 1926, George Morteon, he introduced what he called his administrative reforms. And now, what's happened? What's happened? Under the king, we had a Tutsi in charge of cows, a Hutu in charge of land, and a Twa in charge of army. So the three groups were represented under the authority of the king. Now, what Morteha did, he divided. This is the beginning of the division between Hutu and Tutsi and Twa. When Morteon decided to have only one person, and he selected a Tutsi to be in charge of the cattle, in charge of the land, but also in charge of the army. Hutu were excluded, and Tutsi and Twa were excluded. This is the exclusion of Hutu and Twa, decided by George Morteon, the resident at that time. But before Morteon, maybe I should also talk about what the Catholic Church did. When the Monseigneur Bishop Leon Class introduced the schools and the formal education, he only decided to have only Tutsi boys in schools, and Hutu and Twa were not accepted. At the beginning, when the Catholic Church created or founded schools and the educational system. So again, we can see that the divisions were introduced either by the Catholic Church or by the Belgian administration. And in 1931, we have seen the introduction of identity cards in Rwanda. And now, how to decide who's gonna be a Hutu, who's gonna be a Tutsi, who's gonna be a Twa on the ID card, this piece of paper called identity card. Because we didn't have this before, but the Belgians, they decided to introduce the ID cards. And on this paper, they said the person and the man, not women, but men who have more than 10 cows, they are Tutsi. Less than 10 cows, they are Hutu. And those who didn't have any cow, they were called Twa. Again, another decision by the Belgian, dividing Rwandans by the identity card. And now, this was written on a piece of paper, and the decision came from the Belgian administration. And starting 1931, all men were obliged to have an identity card, and it was written Hutu, Tutsi, or Twa. And the kids took the identity card of the father. That's how, until 1994, we had our identity cards. Either you are Hutu or Tutsi or Twa, or maybe since you came from outside, from another country, you were called nationalized. It means you are not Twa, you are not Tutsi, you are not Twa, but you are nationalized. You have taken the Rwandan nationality. Now, I have to be fast. I want to give you time for questions. In 1957, for the first time, we have this hate speech. The hate speech introduced by the Hutu Parmehutu, the Hutu Manifesto. The Hutu Manifesto was a document written by 9 intellectual Hutus, extremist Hutus, with the support of the Catholic Church, some priests who were also helping those 9 intellectual Hutu to write the Hutu Manifesto. And the Hutu Manifesto was really excluding Tutsi and excluding Twa. It was a document for Hutu, and everything was for Hutu. And in June 57, we have seen the creation of Parmehutu, Parti du Mouvement pour l'Émancipation Hutu, by Gregoire Kayibanda, who will become the first Rwandan president after the independence in 1962. So we can see here the Hutu Manifesto. You can see the orientation of Hutu and the Parmehutu orientation on Hutu, and yet the 2 other groups were excluded. In September 59, the Hutu 10 Commandments by Joseph Habyarimana Gitera. From Save, this guy, he published those Hutu 10 Commandments, and you can find the documents on the website. And when he said that Hutu can't marry a Tutsi, etc., etc. So it's another document oriented to Hutus, only Hutus, only Hutus. And in this document, Gitera said a relationship between Tutsi and the Hutu is impossible. A relationship between Hutu and Tutsi is impossible. That was 59. A relationship between Hutu and Tutsi is a chronic wound on one leg or limb in one body, and a pneumonia in one way. Those are very hard words in 59 talking to Rwandans, and showing that a relationship between Hutu and Tutsi is impossible, according to Joseph Habyarimana Gitera. And he used those media, Jambere. Jambere was one of his media, and Ijwi rya Rwanda Rugufi. And in fact, the 2 media were calling Hutu to move on. The first one, move on, Jambere, or Ijwi rya Rwanda Rugufi, la voix du peuple, or du bas peuple, the voice of small people, small groups of people. So the two newspapers were for the propaganda, and starting 59. So when we are saying that the genocide ideology started in 57 and 59, those are the evidence. And 59, this is the beginning of the killing of the Tutsi. And by the way, on the 25th of September 1959, the king of Rwanda, Mutara Rudahigwa, was killed in Bujumbura. He was ready to take off to New York, to the UN, to to discuss with the United Nations about the independence of Rwanda. And that was 59. As you know, other leaders in Africa, Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana, Kenneth Kaunda in Zambia, Leopold Sedar Senghor in Senegal, Julius Nyerere in Tanzania, all those African leaders, they were fighting for independence. And the king of Rwanda, Mutara Rudahigwa, was also fighting for independence of Rwanda, but the Europeans, the Belgian administration, and the Catholic Church were against him. And we don't know yet why, really the reason why, but on the 25th of July, 59, he was killed in Bujumbura. In fact, his medical doctor gave him an injection, a shot, and then 15 minutes later, he died. He died in Bujumbura when he was ready to leave Bujumbura to New York, to the United Nations. And 59, this is the beginning of killing Tutsi. And for the first time, Tutsi were forced to leave, going to exile in Uganda, Tanzania, Congo, Burundi, all those neighboring countries. Now, 59, we have what they called, Kayibanda and his friends called the Hutu Revolution. The Hutu Revolution in 59, again, as the king was fighting for independence, those 9 intellectual Hutus were against him, and the Catholic Church was against him, and the Belgian administration was against him, because they wanted to, because they were thinking that if Rwanda became independent, the king will continue his power, and the Hutu were against that, and that's how they created this Hutu revolution to start really the killing of the Tutsi in 59. And when Kayibanda became president, officially president in 1962 at the independence, he continued his exclusion of the Tutsi and Twa in the administration, but also in schools. And in 1963, we have seen about 20,000 Tutsi who were killed in Gikongoro. Today is in Nyamagabe districts. And this was between November and December 1963, when in Gikongoro, in Nyamagabe, more than 20,000 Tutsi were killed. And in January and February 1964, the newspaper in Europe, especially Le Monde, Le Point, Libération, Le Figaro, they were talking about genocide in Rwanda. Even the Vatican Radio said what was happening in Rwanda in November and December 1963 was a genocide. If you read Le Monde of the 4th of February 1964, you will see the article explaining how what's happening in Rwanda was a genocide. And for the first time, also Kayibanda was using his choir, Abanyuramatwi from Gitarama, from Muhanga, for the propaganda, using this choir, Abanyuramatwi, to hate Tutsis. Now, Habyarimana, 1973, make a coup d'etat. Habyarimana came to the power in 1973, killing Kayibanda from the south and him from the north. But in fact, he didn't change really the policy in this country. He continued in the same line by excluding Tutsi and Twa in the administration, and especially in the education system. And in 1973, what's happened in 1973 was the exclusion of students, Tutsi, in school. They were excluded from school, and from administration also, the Tutsi were excluded at the workplace. And that was 1973. And CNLG has published, we have published testimonies. We have published more than 30 testimonies of those who were excluded from schools in secondary school and the University of Rwanda in 1973. Now, the planning of the genocide. We are talking about genocide. It means the genocide was a plan. There was an intention to exterminate the Tutsi. So it's not because the crash of the plane of Habyarimana, that was the cause, no. Before the crash of the plane, we had the planning of the genocide. In October 1990, Kangura newspaper republished the Hutu 10 Commandments. Remember, the Hutu 10 Commandments were published by Gitera in 1959, and in 1990, in October, Hassan Ngeze in Kangura republished the Hutu 10 Commandments. And after the publication of Hutu 10 Commandments, Tutsi were killed in Byumba, Gisenyi, Rukengeri, Bugesera, and Bogo. Bogo was one of the communes. Today is Rulindo district. Rulindo district. Now, when the RPA came into Rwanda on October 1st, 1990, Habyarimana was in New York. And from New York, he called his friend, President Mitterrand of France, asking for support. And that's how François Mitterrand decided to send troops to Rwanda, and the Opération Norrois, the soldiers of Opération Norrois came to Rwanda, and they arrived in Rwanda on the 4th of October, 1990. So 3 days later, Opération Norrois started in Rwanda, fighting on the side of Habyarimana. And remember also that time, President Habyarimana called his friend also Mobutu of Zaire, and also Mobutu sent troops to Rwanda to support Habyarimana's troop. In November 1990, this is very interesting. The chief of staff of the gendarmerie, you can say the police, today it's like the police, the gendarmerie, that time, the chief of staff of gendarmerie openly requested ammunition to was called Colonel Afrita and the French embassy in Kigali, and saying that Tutsi represent a small group, give me munitions, give me guns, we're gonna solve the problem, and the only problem we have is the Tutsi group. That's how he said, small group of Tutsi, we're gonna exterminate them very, very quickly. What we need, just arms and munitions. And Pierre Serensei told us to Jean Varret, but Jean Varret refused. Jean Varret refused. But this is the reality, and you can even see the documents even on the internet. In 1993, the Arusha Peace Agreement in Arusha in Tanzania, the RPA was in discussion with the government of Habyarimana to sign peace agreement. And Bagosora, Colonel Theoneste Bagosora was very, very against the peace agreement. And he was also in Arusha. He was in Arusha, and he said, no, we can't accept this. And that's how he said, I'm returning home to prepare the apocalypse. The apocalypse, the end of the Tutsi group, of course. So Bagosora, Colonel Theoneste Bagosora, was against the peace agreement, and he said, I'm going to prepare the apocalypse. And this is February 1993. Now, the militia groups, I'm sure you heard about Interahamwe and Impuzamugambi, but there were more groups than that. For example, Le Réseau Zéro. Le Réseau Zéro was one of the groups created by Mrs. Agathe Habyarimana Kanziga, the wife of the president, and she created the Akazu, the Réseau Zéro, Akazu, with around her, her brother, Proteste Giranyirazo, and the former minister, Joseph Nzirorera, and Gwabukumba, who was the brother of Habyarimana. So the small group at the very high level was also planning the genocide. Then Amasasu. Amasasu was created by Colonel Theoneste Bagosora, and this was in the army, under the Ministry of Defense. So he was calling all soldiers to be against the peace agreement, the Arusha peace agreement. So Amasasu, the objective of Amasasu was to call and to convince all Rwandan soldiers to be against the Arusha Peace Agreement. That was the reason why Colonel Tonest Bagosora created the Amasasu. And he's called in one of the letters he wrote to Habyarimana, he said, I'm Commander Mike Tango. Then we also know the CEDER, the Coalition for the Defense of Republic, one of the extremist groups of Hutus. We had MRND, the Habyarimana political party, but he created also the CEDER, which was a very extremist group to kill and to train, to kill Tutsi, but also to train Hutus how to kill, and also the distribution of ammunition to the Hutu population. The media, Habyarimana and his troops, Akazu, they all also use media. Remember, Joseph Habyarimana Gitera was using the media, and Kayibanda was using his power, Abanyiramatwi. And here, Habyarimana is using Kangura, one of the newspaper, famous newspaper. We heard about it. And there is another one called Interahamwe. Again, Interahamwe was a militia group, but also Interahamwe was a newspaper. I think many people don't know that, but it was also a name of a newspaper created in January 1992. And then the Radio Television Libre de Mercure, which was created in April 1993 by Kabuga and especially Kabuga, who was the financier of the RTLM. Now, genocide denied. According to Gregory Stanton, Professor Gregory Stanton, we have 10 stages of genocide, and one of the 10 stages of genocide is denied. And how the way he explained this, in fact, the denied started before the colonial period, before the genocide, during the genocide, and after the genocide. For example, before the genocide, those who are planning the genocide, when they hide the list of Tutsi to be killed, this is a deny. This is a deny. So the deny, today we are in post-genocide context. We see deny today, but the deny started even before the genocide and during the genocide, because those who were killing the Tutsi in 1994 were also hiding the bodies. So another deny. And today we can see deny in the newspaper. We come back about that later. Now, here at CNLG, we have conducted this small survey between January 2019 and June 2020 to see the status of genocide ideology. And we have seen this. We have seen 184 cases of genocide ideology. And among them, 150 were men and 54 were women. And this is very interesting. We understand now, we know that the majority of the deniers are men. I don't think it's surprising. For us, it's not a surprise. And also when you analyze how many men and how many women participate in the genocide, the majority are men. But also the other thing which is interesting, among those genocide deniers, you know, when you say something in the public, because the law says you have to say something in the public, and then someone was listening to you, then report to the police make an investigation, police or RIP, they make an investigation, then you are taken to the court. Only the judge can decide if you are guilty or not. And then here we can see that 54 people were acquitted. So this also shows that the judicial system in Rwanda are operating and are really, anybody can trust the Rwandan judicial system. It's not because you are accused that we are guilty. No, you are accused because someone thinks you are guilty, but it's the responsibility of the judge, of the judicial system to determine if you are guilty or not. Let me give you two examples of genocide ideology. Here we have Sylvie.
Sylvie Tumusabire, 19 years old, imagine, 19 years old in 2018. It means this lady was born after the genocide. This is what she said. You would better reap vegetables and fry them with the bones of your father before going to commemoration talks. Aha. So Sylvie is talking to Jeanne, who is genocide survivor. So you take the bones of your father, you put together with vegetables, you fry, then you have a nice meal, then you go to commemoration talk. Imagine this. Imagine this from someone of 19 years old. Today, Sylvie is in prison. She's in prison for 7 years because of this. Another example, Tito Gakwaya, 66 years old, 2018. It's very normal that Tutsi are killed in April. For him, every April, Tutsi should be killed. Every April, every April, every April, every April. It's normal that Tutsi are killed in April. And this guy, today, he's in prison for 7 years. Now, I think you follow the speech by the president on the 7th of April. He mentioned Professor Ibrahim Gambari from Nigeria, what he did in 1994. I want to bring this back because we have to remember those people, those very powerful men, Professor Ibrahim Gambari of Nigeria, Ambassador Karen Kovanda from Czech Republic, Ambassador Colin Keating from New Zealand. The three ambassadors were in New York in 1994, and they said, hey, please be careful. What is happening in Rwanda is a genocide. So they were calling the Security Council about what was happening in Rwanda, calling them that, please be careful, please watch, and do something. And you remember that France, President Butaro refused even to recognize that what was happening in Rwanda was a genocide. So later on, he accepted, but at the beginning he refused. And President Bill Clinton also at the beginning he refused. So the three ambassadors, they were calling the Security Council to recognize that what was happening in Rwanda was a genocide. And we can also mention New Zealand, Argentina, Spain, Czech Republic, Nigeria. Those countries in New York at the Security Council, they were also supporting the three ambassadors, calling the Security Council to recognize that what was happening in Rwanda was a genocide. My last slide, I want to quote His Excellency the President. If deniers have no shame, why should we have fear? So what he's calling us as Rwandans to stand up and also know what is going on today. We can see around us through media, publications. We have seen books, articles. We have seen on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, many people who are against Rwanda, against the government, who are denying the genocide against the Tutsi. Now, the president is asking me, is asking you, is asking everybody, what can you, why should you have fear? Why should I have fear? What can you do? What can I do? I think I'm talking now to students. I think everyone, but also anybody. We have to fight against genocide denial and genocide ideology. If you can't write a book on genocide, if you can't write an article on genocide, but you can send a tweet. Send a tweet, send a short message on Facebook, on Instagram. If you see someone denying the genocide against Tutsi, reply or even send a message to CNLG, say, hey, here there is someone called blah, 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 and tell that please do something. Then at CNLG, we will be happy to follow and we will do something. We can write article, we can do many things. We can use YouTube, we can use YouTube to fight against those people who are destructing what Rwanda has done so far since 1994. I think this is what we can learn from now. Let's do something, because we see many people really denying the genocide, and it's our common responsibility to act and do something. At your level, if you are a student, at your level, do something. If you are a professor at your level, do something. If you are a teacher, do something. But any Rwandan, but also anybody, because a genocide can happen everywhere, in any place. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guest speaker. This is the time for discussion. And the UGHE community, you are welcome to ask the questions using the chat functionality, and our guest speaker will respond to them as they come. For those who are in the rooms, we have facilitators, and we take questions room by room. Also, raise your hand using the raise hand functionality of Zoom to ask a question.
Hi, thank you very much for the amazing presentation. My name is Leah Pilenga Masamo. I'm from Kenya, and speaking as a Kenyan, I stand with all Rwandans in this period of Kwibuka. My question is with regarding to the sensitive topic of deniers and denial. I know His Excellency Paul Kagame has done an amazing and fantastic job of uniting all people of Rwanda. How do us as students, or for example, us as Kenyans looking at Rwanda, how do you, as the people of Rwanda, maintain the delicate balance of reconciliation, reintegration, and protection of the people from those so-called bad fruits who may want to incite division again, coming from where you came from? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you want me to answer the question, or should I wait the other more questions? Okay, let me answer the question, maybe. Let me answer the, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the question. Here we are talking about a very complex and sensitive issue of genocide. Very complex and very sensitive. We had the genocide in this country. But 27 years later, I think everyone can see where we came from, 1994, and where we are 27 years later. To achieve what we have achieved, it's because Rwandan people are resilient. Rwandan people are resilient. It's not easy. It's not easy. Nothing is easy. It's a long process. But I think the important thing is to put in place strategies that help Rwandans to see themselves as Rwandans. For example, after 1994, in 1994, everything was destroyed. First of all, people were killed, Tutsi were killed, and many Hutu left Rwanda to Congo, to Zaire. So we have here human consequences. Then social consequences. What we call the social fabric was destroyed in Rwanda. Relationship between people. Then economic consequences. No money at the national bank. No money, zero at the national bank. All banks were closed. And by the way, I think starting after the genocide, immediately after the genocide, and up to probably 2000, maybe I'm wrong, but 95, 96, 97, 98, people in administration, They didn't get salary. They didn't have money. The country didn't have money. No, they were paid using rice or sugar or potatoes or, the country didn't have money to pay the salaries. Those who were in Rwanda, they know that. So, security. We had anti-personnel landmines everywhere. So people couldn't go even to the field to cultivate their beans or their potatoes. So many consequences in terms of education, health system, security, justice, in all sectors. So you have a country where you have to rebuild this country from zero, from the scratch. Nothing. You don't have money to pay to the staff. You have many traumatized people because of the genocide. You don't have school. You don't have education system because the teacher were killed or forced to leave. You don't have a medical doctor, nurses. Now, what do you do? And you have to take all those problems at the same time and put, make a balance. But on the balance, you see that you have all those. Now, start with. Am I starting with education? Am I starting with the health system or security issues? So the decision was to start with everything: education, health, security, social, etc., etc. Rebuilding roads and bridges, etc. So putting in place the strategies where all Rwandans come together and find themselves as Rwandans, not as a Hutu, not as a Tutsi, not as a Twa, but bringing all people together and ask them to share everything, sharing education, sharing health system, sharing security, sharing everything, and involve everyone in the rebuilding the nation. In the whole process, you involve everyone. That's what Rwanda did, involving every Rwandan in education system, in building schools, in building hospitals, in everything. And also, for example, another example, the health insurance. The health insurance is one of the political strategies which brought all Rwandans together, because it's really most of people, I think 97 people in Rwanda, percent of people who have health insurance. So all those strategies which were put in place by the government of Rwanda was to show to Rwandans that you are all Rwandans, and is for you, for Rwandans, not for one group, but for all Rwandans. So what I'm saying here is to achieve what Rwanda has achieved. It's a long process where you involved all Rwandans in all districts, in all cells, in all Umudugudu, not only in Kigali, but everywhere. So all Rwandans, they see themselves that they are part of the program. They are part of the program, they're part of the progress. And I think it's not leaving anybody behind. Not leaving anybody behind in terms of education, in terms of health, in terms of economy, infrastructure, bring electricity everywhere, bring water everywhere, bring internet everywhere. Of course, it's taking time. It's taking time, but do something and show to the people that you are doing what you do for them. And I think Rwandans have seen this. And if you discuss with Rwandans in different places, they will tell you the experience in terms of education, cooperatives, health, energy, etc., etc. So put in place strategy in which all Rwandans or many Rwandans can see themselves, and feel heard, feel understood. I think that's what I can say.
Thank you. I wish you could have more time, but unfortunately it's over. So we would have welcomed more questions. but I would encourage everyone to take them, and our HR will compile them and send them to our guest speaker, and the responses will be forwarded. Guest speaker, this is time to follow the closing remarks from our Vice Chancellor.
Thank you, Dr. Jean Damascene. Thank you, Jean d'Amour. I'm going to complete you, Dr. Jean Damascene, because the question is really at the heart of what, especially in the beginning of the reconstruction of the country after 1994, how to make the criminals, because the criminals are those who have conceived the genocide and politically nourished the genocide, how to make the criminal accountable, how to make the implementers, because there are many people who implement without reflecting that it was a crime against humanity, reflect for this to never come again, and how to give recognition to the victims. That's the heart of that question. And Dr. Jean Damascene told you, change radically, have an inclusiveness approach, and work for a development for all in health, education, human development. That's how Rwanda is highly rated in human development. We are still economically very poor, I think among the 20 bottom of the world. However, what we managed to do with this approach is high. And that's the only way to fight, but also be without any mercy to anyone who wants to put us again in this trap of hatred and fear and discrimination. So this is for complementing the question, a response to the question. And the importance is that it's not only in health. In health, our job was to make sure that health insurance is for all, that access to IRVs is for all, that access to vaccination is for all, that there is an equity in geographic access to what we have. We don't have a lot, but at least that nobody can be excluded for who they are. And also reflect on our history, because it's important to understand that there is even no ethnicity, like Dr. Jean Damascene told you. If you go in any dictionary, the definition of ethnicity is a geographic location of a group of humans who speak a unique language and who practice the same religion roughly. In Rwanda, there were Hutu, Tutsi, Twa, who were social classes that were all talking the same language since more than 600 years. And this was recorded in books. So it's not something that you can say we created now. And we had the similar animist religion before the arrival of the colonialists. So we were a nation with a king, an administration that take taxes. The Tutsi were the people who had privilege at that time, and the Hutu who were agriculture, and the Twa who were, everybody has a function in the society. It was not an ideal, but it was not, we never faced one group that killed another for who they were before 1994. So this is important to reflect. And I thank you, Dr. Jean Damascene, for your presentation. I thank the National Commission for the Fight Against the Genocide for the diligent work they do in preventing and fighting against the genocide, its ideology, and overcoming the consequences of it, and also to keep the memory of the victim of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. I thank all of you who participate in the UGHE commemoration of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. We hope that you will send your questions to HR, and I'm sure that Dr. Jean Damascene and his team will send back the answers. We need to do all this reflection to make sure that never again truly means never again. At the University of Global Health Equity, we want to ensure that we, as a global institution, engage our students, our staff and faculty to discuss and reflect how to combat genocide spirit, genocide denial in Rwanda and all over the world. Is it the Holocaust? Is it in Rwanda? Is it in Cambodia? Any genocide, because it's a danger to humanity and denying some human the right to live, what is the first of all human rights. As we are increasingly see today, the trauma of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi caused impact to the next generation that was born after. Within our population, there is an increasing evidence of transgenerational trauma among young people in Rwanda. So there is also something for us to do, action we could contribute to improve the mental health of the next generation, the young generation of now. With this history and its current implication, coupled with the fact that we have many young individuals in our university communities surrounding us, we need to raise awareness about their mental health and encourage the use of different approaches to address this issue. And I'm not talking about the family of the victims, the survivor of the genocide. I talk in general, because the children of the perpetrators are also suffer also with trauma for what their parents have done. Yeah. And if we want to continue our journey, we need to care about them in an inclusive manner, like all the development of Rwanda have tried to do since 1994. And as a global institution based in Rwanda, we are cognizant of the community and of the country where we are based, how it operates, our history, the culture of Rwanda, the needs of Rwanda. And you cannot pass through this country without reflecting how to pass through such hardship for humanity and rebuild, like Dr. Jean Damascene have said, doing your best to leave no one out. And even when we do our best, we are not good enough because there are still vulnerable people that are there. So we must continue our journey. 27 years ago, we were a country where no one expected that we will succeed in our journey. But with an emphasis on our community and trust building and solidarity building based on the principle that all life matters. Mm-hmm. As global health fighters and as promoters of UGHE values, it is important for everyone to stand in solidarity with any victim of genocide, any survivor of genocide, and to learn and reflect on how we can contribute to create inclusivity in Rwanda and elsewhere. These are at the heart of global health. We know just how critical it is to create a strong avenue for peace and reconciliation with the recognition of the victim. And this also answers to the question, victims need to be recognized. Reconciliation is an absolute necessity to break the cycle of revenge and of violence. This is why remember the victims of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, unite in solidarity and continue to renew the country through our academic efforts at UGHE and in the health sector is a necessity. Again, thank you, Dr. Jean Damascene, and thank you, all of you, for your participation. Your questions are welcome, and they will all be answered.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor Vice Chancellor. It was really my pleasure to be with you this afternoon. And please, if you have time and you want to reflect on the 1994 genocide against Tutsi, please don't hesitate to call CNLG, to go to Dr. Bizimana, and then he will send someone and we will make more presentations. So please do. And if there are more questions, I'll be happy to answer those questions by writing. And let's continue to share about the 1994 genocide against Tutsi. And let's have everybody inclusive, and let's not exclude anybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Guest speaker, Vice Chancellor, Deputy Vice Chancellors, members of the UGHE community, staff, faculty, students, and contractors, thank you for your contribution and participation. Today's session is concluded.